Do you think Colorado Springs is still the perfect little mountain town with cheap houses, easy living? You're about 10 years too late.
This is not the Colorado Springs that you've seen on Instagram. We're gonna talk about what it's really like to live here that nobody seems to be telling you the truth about. Now, to kick things off, without a doubt, the #1 complaint about Colorado Springs is affordability, specifically affordability surrounding the housing market, where we've seen almost a 2x growth in just the last decade. You heard that right, 2x in the last decade. In fact, since 2015 to now, we're talking 119% increase in the purchase price of homes, while median income only went up 35%. That is giving us, for a purchase price, 6 times that of what we're seeing for the income. Median home prices are now sitting around $500,000. Now that has major implications for first-time homebuyers. I get this comment all the time on my videos that the first-time homebuyers in the $350,000 range, they're like, oh my gosh, nobody can afford that. Nobody's buying it because it's 1,500 square feet. It's got a terrible yard, but you're asking $350,000 for it. But you know what? It's also the people coming from California and other places that are in the $1 million club that are a little bit surprised at what you actually get for $1 million. You know, if you go down to the Broadmoor, it is very, very common, as an example, that you'll see homes for $1 million to $1.5 million that just look like 1990s time capsules. Some call it ornate, some might call it gaudy, but you're really looking at over $250,000 in renovations to get the home feeling like you're actually living in 2025. Now, what you need to understand about Colorado Springs market is that we've kind of peaked out. Now, we're not having a crash, but we're definitely stalled or maybe in a plateau. Here's something crazy for you though. In Old Colorado City, for example, if you look at price per square foot, you'll have homes around 1,000 square foot selling for $450,000. That's $400 plus per square foot. Now that's not normal in the city, but across the city, you will see very, very commonly $200 to $250 per square foot. And like I said, a lot of people are gonna feel a lot of angst about that. So what does that mean for you in your price range? That is something that you're gonna need a professional to talk with.
Now, it's no secret, over the last decade, Colorado Springs has struggled with its crime rates. It's one of the reasons, probably the second biggest reason, that we fell in the rankings for US News' best places to live. Colorado Springs has a violent crime rate that's over 70%. 70% over the US median. That's crazy to me. Now, I don't want you to think that you're just destined to be attacked anywhere you walk in the city. When you look at the stats, that's actually not the case at all. And most of the crime actually relates to property crimes. In fact, kind of stunning to myself also, Colorado Springs ranks a little bit better in both crime categories compared to Denver, Albuquerque, Salt Lake City. So that really kind of took me by surprise. Now, one of the other top comments we get on our YouTube channel and across all of our social media platforms is people complaining about the homelessness. And look, I get it. It is a real thing and it's a real struggle. But you got to realize our metro population has grown by over 100,000 people in the last decade. And we're somewhere between 10 and 20,000 housing units short. That kind of shortage is going to create couch surfing, which is going to create unsheltered homelessness. Now, the city says from 2023 to 2024, they actually experienced a 31% decrease in unsheltered homelessness. But a lot of critics say the city's toughness on sweeping up camps and cleaning up camps, things like that, is actually just pushing people around and not making any difference. We'll let you be the judge.
Everyone loves to brag that we get 300 days of sun per year, but what does that really mean? Because if you're coming from California, you might be thinking, well, that's about as close as it gets to where I'm coming from. But we gotta talk about the reality and all the things that happen when you're at 6,000 feet of elevation and at the base of the mountains. So the reality is it's actually closer to like 243 days of truly sunny days, meaning less than 30% cloud coverage. I mean, you can see today, this would actually be considered a sunny day because most of the morning it was completely sunny. And now in the summertime, we got major buildup right over the top of Pikes Peak. This is super, super common to see. And I'm gonna be honest, in the winter, it can feel a little bit grayer than what you might be anticipating. I literally have clients that text me and they go, hey, I thought you said that it was gonna be sunny all winter. And it kind of was until it wasn't. And that seems to be a larger reality than most people are expecting. Now, for those of you coming from Texas, this one's gonna sound familiar. Colorado ranks number 2 in the country for hail claims. In fact, in the past decade, we did over $5 billion in insured losses. That means that you're gonna be constantly checking the radar, and you're probably gonna wanna have some kind of garage to protect your assets. Now, just last week, I had some clients message me and say, Kyle, we didn't realize that we were gonna be experiencing so many weather patterns in just one day, but that is summer in Colorado. We have afternoon monsoon season. July and August are actually our rainiest seasons. We get almost 3 inches a month at that time. But you can see again, all these clouds build up over those big 14,000 foot peaks. And then we get these storms that come in the afternoon and just rip across the town. Now, these storms might only last 20, 30, 45 minutes, but they still are gonna kind of put a damper on the day. But what I like about them is that it actually cools the temperature down significantly, and we really have super nice evenings. Now, we're not necessarily the land of the midnight sun, but in the winter, I gotta be honest, we have some wildly short days. In fact, the shortest day is 9 hours and 38 minutes, and it gets dark at about 4:30 p.m. That can really suck. That means that you can wake up, it's dark, you go to work, the sun's barely coming up, and by the time you're leaving work, the sun is already going down. That doesn't feel very good to a lot of people. Now, I will say on the flip side that in the summer, we have very, very long days, and the sun won't actually start setting till 9 p.m., and you'll have it really, really bright outside till almost 10. So there's a little bit of give and take, but it can be really brutal on the winter, and some people, they're just not built for it. And maybe the most confusing thing that happens to your body is when you mow the lawn and shovel your driveway in the same week. We typically get snowfall all the way through April and occasionally in May, and the first snowfall might happen even in October. In fact, the average first snowfall is late October. So it feels very bizarre, and it almost feels like you can't get a grip on which season is starting when. Our shoulder seasons are super long. But what I love about Colorado Springs is that we, generally speaking, have pretty mild temperatures. Now, will we have a really hot week or two in the summer? Yes. Will we have a really cold week or two in the winter? Also, yes. But here we are mid-July, and we've only had a couple days over 90 degrees. And then even in the winter, we'll really only get down into the single digits, maybe for a week or two. So the mild temperature, I think, is what draws people here, but it is certainly not California, and it's certainly not as aggressively hot as Texas.
Now, we get this comment all the time too, but it's also one of my personal biggest frustrations in this city, and it's traffic. The reason it could be so frustrating is not because there is so much traffic or there are so many people. I mean, this isn't like it's LA or anywhere, in the Bay Area or anything like that. It's just that our patterns, our traffic patterns, the amount of construction that we have going on all the time creates what you see behind me. Now, you might be wondering, why is there so much traffic right here behind me? What's up ahead of there? Well, great question. It's a 3-degree turn to the left and a little bit of road construction. But it creates this every single day, almost all day long. The next question you might be asking yourself is, well, how bad is the traffic really? And that's a great question too. In the last decade, we've gone from an average commute time of 18 minutes to just over 24 minutes. Now, if you're coming from California, Dallas, Houston, Tampa, Atlanta, you might be saying, that's nothing for me. And maybe it isn't. But the real frustration comes from experiencing that kind of traffic in a city where maybe it's not necessarily warranted. To put that into perspective, that extra 6 minutes in the car, that adds up to 1 week, 1 work week over the course of a year. Now, how's this going to affect you personally? Well, weekend I-25 can be an absolute parking lot. So if you're expecting an easy drive to Denver on the weekends, don't. Reframe that expectation. Also, if you live on the east side and you've got to commute back to the west side of town for work or dropping the kids off at school, whatever the case may be, just expect that commute to take a little bit longer than you think it will. Our east to west traffic patterns here are much worse than the north and south. But in all reality, outside of the rush hours and outside of the lunch hour, Colorado Springs is still pretty easy drive it.
Now, unfortunately, some of the biggest comments that we get on our videos and on our short form media is that there's no good food options here, or that Colorado Springs has no diversity, and there's just kind of some wild misconceptions, or are there? Now, this one breaks my heart a little bit, but it's maybe one of the most important things to consider when trying to figure out where you're gonna live, and it is, what's the food scene really like? Now, if you ask anybody from Denver, they're gonna tell you that Colorado Springs has a terrible food scene. Or if you talk to anybody that hasn't been here in the last 10 years, they'll also probably tell you the same. And the reality is they're not totally wrong. I mean, if I go to Denver, I'm gonna have some wild options. There's multiple Michelin star restaurants. There's tons of diversity. There are legitimate, authentic restaurants up there. And we do truly lack that here a little bit. But in the last 5 to 7 years, Colorado Springs has really been on the up and up, and we're getting a lot more stuff like that. I'll give you a couple of my personal favorites so you know where to look. Number one, Massam. They have a Michelin star chef, 2-time Michelin star chef, who actually catered for the Prime Minister of India. It's unbelievable. Another great place is Shuga's, which is downtown. Kawadi actually has some killer food inside of it. Fat Sully's is phenomenal pizza. We've got some insane breweries down here that I think actually our brewery scene is probably better than Denver's, if I'm being honest. And a couple of those ones that you're definitely going to want to look out for is Trinity, Cerberus Brewing, and Bristol Brewing over at Ivywild. So there's a long list of these, and if you really want more of those, just reach out. We'd be happy to share with you the best ones to go to. But the food scene, the best part of the food scene is really in the downtown area, but it's never going to compete with something as large and populous as Denver. Now, another observation that a lot of people make, in fact, we once upon a time got this comment that said, Colorado Springs is the evangelical capital of the United States, and that's just blatantly false. However, it might be the evangelical capital of Colorado. It is a, generally speaking, pretty right-leaning city, and historically has been a very, very red city. I would say, as of late, it's a lot more purple. We have an independent mayor, and I think that you see kind of a comfortable mix. So I'll give you an example. Colorado Springs actually hosts its own Pride Parade. Now, it's not as big as Denver's or San Francisco, obviously. It's a much smaller city, but you can actually see that type of stuff as you go downtown. I just feel like here, you're not inundated. You're not buried in political leanings, left or right. And to be honest, that's something that I really appreciate. And this probably won't come as a surprise, but also the nightlife in Colorado Springs is not world class. People don't talk about how amazing the nightlife is here. The main street here, Tejon, is where you're going to find any kind of nightlife, but it's not going to be anything like Denver. But the reality is that if you really want a nightlife scene, just go to Denver. It's like 45 minutes away. Listen, no city is perfect, and Colorado Springs is not the exception. But if you are moving here and you don't have a choice, here is the beginner's guide to all things Colorado Springs. Let's go watch it.